we're trying to get the snake to relax. If you use these and you grab onto it, it's just gonna go crazy. All hell is going to break loose. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Reptile Talk. Today we're gonna go over my top 5 most used items in the reptile room. 5 items I couldn't get by without. So let's jump right into it. First up on the list are hook sticks. Now, I work a lot with venomous animals, so it's self-explanatory why I would have hook sticks. You don't really go in and touch venomous snakes with your hands. I mean, some people do it. I prefer not to. So I mainly use hook sticks. There are many different types of hook sticks, and I have quite a collection of hook sticks. I didn't get all of this overnight, so yeah, you can give yourself time. But start off with some basic hook sticks. This is a 3-piece hook stick. Let me put these ones down. 3-piece hook stick, so I can kind of break it down and travel with it. And it's a nice universal size. So you can do a lot with this type of size. This is actually my preferred hook stick to work on cobras with, because it's nice and wide. Now, there are other types of hook sticks, like the one here in the back. Actually, let me get it for you. This one is a kind of DIY double hook or wide hook. This is to get your chunkier snakes. When we're talking about venomous, we're talking about mainly vipers, big thick vipers, but you may want to handle like bigger constrictors with it, big pythons. Although, yeah, this is DIY, so we would be testing its limits. But for big vipers, this definitely does the job. And then we have a little medium hook stick, nice wide hook. Now, what's really important when you're looking at hook sticks is the hook size. I'll give you a comparison here. So let's take this hook stick here. Has a very narrow hook, and it's actually a smaller hook stick altogether. So you guessed it, this would probably be used more for juvenile snakes and smaller vipers, for example. Young cobras, small vipers. And I've got another one here, another small double hook, which both of these, by the way, are from Snakes Professional, and this one is from Ultimate Exotics. Not paid. This is not a promo, just if you wonder where I'm getting this from. And this one I got at Ham, and this is Renji's Venomous Snakes. Also not affiliated with him whatsoever, but this is kind of a fancier hook stick. You can see it has some patterns on it. This was an impulse buy. I'm not too proud of it. I mean, I do use it. You can see it's dinged up. Everything here gets used, so yeah. Hook sticks, have them all over your room. I have some set up here. I have some set up behind the camera. I have one on the enclosure back here, which you can't see. So I have hook sticks all over the room. So if something happens, if I lose one hook stick, all of you guys who work with fast elapids know what I'm talking about. Forest cobras will climb up hook sticks in like seconds, especially the West African banded cobras. Sure, those things will, they'll be up here in no time. So you gotta drop the hook stick and look for another hook stick. But if you gotta, go to the other side of the room, but the snake is blocking off the room, good luck doing that. So hook sticks all over the room. And actually hook sticks are probably my most used tool in this room. So, yeah. Another thing I can say about hook sticks is you don't only need these if you work with venomous. If you have non-venomous snakes and they have a feeding response, a hook stick is a nice way to get around it. You can kind of boop the nose a little bit gently, and the snake will understand that it's not feeding time. if you do it enough times, if you train the snake, if I can use that terminology. Another thing is hook sticks are just a generally good tool. You know, you can move things around in the enclosure with them if you don't necessarily want to stick your hands in. For all of you non-venomous keepers who may want to get into venomous keeping, I'm watching my words here, but you can like kind of start training on non-venomous snakes with these. And why I'm careful with my words is you will not meet a non-venomous, I mean, I'm sure there are some out there, but very few non-venomous snakes that will act like a king cobra or a forest cobra or a mamba even, you know. A great one is or are mole snakes. Mole snakes, I mean, it's individual dependent, of course, but mole snakes will give you a run for your money. I would argue they're harder to handle than a lot of cobras. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Next up on the list are tweezers and forceps. Again, very self-explanatory, especially when you're feeding. You don't want your hands close to the pointy end of whatever it is you're feeding. So tweezers, forceps give you a bit of distance, helps with cleaning, bringing things in and out of the enclosure. You know, if you're in this hobby, you're gonna do things that are not so fun, such as autopsies potentially on animals that passed away. So I have smaller tweezers for that and smaller forceps for that, for example. Force feeding is another thing which is not too fun to do, but you might have to do, and then smaller tweezers, depending on what animal it is, are better for that. Number 3 on my list are gloves. Now, these are hex armor gloves that I got from Snake Professional. I promise this is not sponsored. I just have experience with these gloves. The first ones I ever used weren't mine, actually, because these are quite expensive. And after seeing multiple people take bites in these, and then myself taking a bite from a rink halls, which was a very funny feeling, I may add, I was convinced they're worth the price. This exact pair I haven't been bitten in yet, so I've had these for a few years now, and still going because I haven't been bitten. The thing is, these gloves were developed for people who pick up needles in the hospital business, I believe. So, or people who handle the hospital's trash, they wear these gloves to not get stung or pricked by needles. And yeah, word got around and they ended up in the reptile industry, pet industry, venomous snake industry especially. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they've actually made the most sales with these. They're made of Kevlar on the outer shell, and then there are multiple other layers inside. So yeah, if you do get bitten and then you get bitten exactly in the same spot, the odds of that are what they are. The fang will have an easier time going through. Now, so getting bitten multiple times by these will render them useless. So you should be careful with them, and they are an investment. Definitely kind of a instructor's luxury, I may say. This is definitely a pro tool, not something you have to get immediately. When I started off, I just used normal welder's gloves. I don't have any here to show you, but they're also, well, they're not, these ones are not leather, but those ones are kind of made out of suede leather. They're quite thick. They're gonna be okay for things like boomslang and twig snakes, definitely, because they have really tiny fangs. I've heard of people taking bites in those from cobras. I've heard of actually someone getting bitten by those, wearing those by a forest cobra, and the fang went through. Other people get bitten and it doesn't go through, but these guys are much better. It's never 100%, but it's an extra layer of protection. and a very effective one, I may add. They've been tested with vipers as well. Now, that's not meaning that I'm gonna start, free handling my snakes, or not, well, handling them with gloves, trying to get bitten. Yeah, it just adds a bit of confidence in your handling manner, I may say. You feel a bit safer, so you're a bit freer when you're handling. If you're all tense and scared, something's gonna go wrong. The better you feel, the more comfortable you feel, the more odds are you're gonna get out of this alive with all 10 fingers. Now, another thing why these gloves could be helpful is when you have heat-sensing animals, pythons in the non-venomous world and pit vipers in the venomous world. If you have those gloves on, and leather gloves will do just as well in that, it's covering your heat signature. So the animal's not going to come flying at you because it sees the big heat signature, or it's not going to be scared of you or less scared of you because of the heat signature. I think that's less of a concern because most of our animals are captive born, captive bred, so they're not that afraid of us. But yeah, it does cover up your heat signature. Number 4 on my list is a snake bucket. This one with a nice venomous snake sticker, actually 2 venomous snake stickers. Chandler would say snake holding receptacle. Yeah, you can use anything really which will hold a snake. At Dingo's, we used to use smaller plastic boxes, like even smaller than this in some cases. But the thing is, we had much more room to work with the animals. So, we could get them into these smaller enclosures or smaller boxes for a few minutes while we service their enclosures. Give them a nice soak. Snakes like forest cobras, actually almost every snake would get a soak, just so they can rehydrate, and then we take care of the enclosure. Snake is nice and safe in an enclosed space, and we're free to work on the enclosure, because especially with venomous animals, I don't want to be reaching in there with my hand, because that's how you get bitten. Now, one thing that we actually figured out over time, and this was again at Dingo's, is when you use transparent boxes, some of the animals may be less, how can I put this, agitated. So if I put them in this bucket here, it's all dark. So okay, the snake is in there, and while it's in there, it's all cool. But as soon as I open it, it's gonna be frightened, because it's going from dark, kind of safe-ish feeling to, whoa, sunlight, big thing right on top of me. That big thing being you trying to get the animal out and putting it in an enclosure. And so the animals, in a lot of cases, are very fearful. When you use clear boxes, the animal sees you come, the animal sees you reach on top and open, so they expect what's coming. This is not 100% of the cases, but we did notice that. And last but not least on my list, snake tongs. Now, there's a reason why I put these last on my list. It's because you would think that you use these to handle snakes, which you do, they're snake grabbers. That's what they're made for. However, I use them mostly for getting things in and out of enclosures. Water bowls, especially when I don't want to take the animal out, I'll use either this one, narrow mouthed, long mouthed, and I have again a few different types and lengths of tongs. So the reason why I don't use these for handling is, once you grab a snake with these, that snake is going to be very fearful and it's going to fight for its life. We want to avoid that whenever possible. So working with certain cobras, for example, I will first go in with a hook stick, because you know, the snake can still move and you're moving with the snake is less fearful, or at least that's where we're trying to go. We're trying to get the snake to relax. If you use these and you grab onto it, it's just gonna go crazy. All hell is going to break loose. So when would I use these on a snake? First of all, when I'm necking, and I almost never neck. Necking is when you grab a snake behind the head. You're gonna hold on to the snake at a certain level of its body and it's gonna move backwards, and then you can close it a bit tighter and grab it. The other thing is, with that is when beginners use these tongs, especially these narrow-mouthed ones, they will put on too much pressure and hurt the snake. So that's where these wide mouths come in, where you're much less likely to hurt the snake if you put on more pressure, because the pressure is dispersed. The thing with that is these tongs with the wider mouth are not really good for necking because they take up too much surface. These are much better for necking. I will also use these on big, fast elapids, mambas especially. It is very, very difficult to move a mamba on a hook stick, especially one that is not used to it. And then some cobras as well. I'm pretty blessed. I don't need to use these on my cobras as of now. Actually, I take that back. I do use the wide mouth ones. So again, I have two sizes, short and long. And I'll use these two to move my handicapped black-necked spitting cobra, because that snake is from the wild. It is 2/3 of its body are paralyzed, but it does not like human contact. It has stopped spitting at me, but it will not ride a hook stick. She will not ride a hook stick, so I'll just use these and use one to grab the first third of the body before the injury, and the other one after the injury, so the animal has good support, I don't hurt it, and then I can move it from one place to another. So there you have it. Those were my top 5 most used items in the reptile room. I hope you got some insight and some information from all my rambling. I'm trying to take this a bit more seriously and post weekly. So see you guys in the next one. Peace.